our story. I know that we can win. I know that greatness lies in you. But remember, from here on in, history has
Rock
its
it out.
eyes on you. History. Oh, history has its eyes on you. History.
Well. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Creative Connections. It is a series of conversations between theater artists to talk about current times, what's happening in these artists' life, how they're keeping busy, how they're coping. My name is Newton Buchanan, and I am joined by Lena Nucchetti. Hello, Lena. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
Good. And today we have a very special guest on today. Good friend Patrick Vassel. Hello, Patrick.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, it is our absolute pleasure to have you. We have been kind of waiting with bated breath to have you here. That's not creepy at all, is it, Patrick? So, as part of this, before we get started, Lena, could you tell us a little bit about Patrick?
I can tell you about Patrick. We were both film, television, and theater majors together at the University of Notre Dame with a couple shows. I know. A college production of King Lear in which Patrick played the King of France who married my poor cast-off Cordelia. And since that noteworthy credit, he's added a few arguably more impressive items to his bio. I know, it's hard to top. He is based in New York. Patrick is a director and playwright, and Nothing Left to Burn, which he co-wrote and directed, was featured in several festivals, including at the Public Theater, and was an O'Neill semifinalist. He is a member of the Notre Dame Performing Arts Advisory Council and Notre Dame Media and Entertainment Leadership Committee. He's a former teaching artist and current member of the Artistic Advisory Board of Opening Act, a nonprofit providing free after-school theater programs in New York City high schools. And he's got a long list of directing credits, including Broadway's Magic Bird, Freestyle Love Supreme, and he is the supervising and associate director for a little show called Hamilton.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Newton.
Thanks,
Lena.
Yeah, that was very nice. Yeah, welcome, Patrick. So Patrick, we kind of start this off. We like to kind of get to know our guests and who they are. And I'm going to ask you probably the hardest question up front right now. If you don't mind, bear with me. It's going to be heavy. And this is a heavy question anyway, but how are you?
That's the question. That's a good question. It's a good question to start with. The answer to that question changes all the time, but at the moment as Lena mentioned, I'm based in New York City. I'm based in Brooklyn, and I live in Bed-Stuy, Bedford-Stuyvesant, which is a neighborhood that is not too far from where a lot of the protests and marches and actions have been happening. And so in answering how am I, I'm feeling pretty good. I just went for a run, and at 6 o'clock tonight there was a bike ride protest, a bike ride for peace. And so out on my run through the streets of Brooklyn, it was just thousands and thousands and thousands of people on their bikes, just all heading in the same direction. Wow. So it was uplifting to see that. And I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I'm so impressed, and I hope you all know what a remarkable thing it is that the work that New Lights does, and the mission to not just put up shows, but to put up shows with real thought and care for why you are doing the show, and connected conversations and meaningful support for the causes that are thematically linked to those shows. To me, that's the kind of theater making that everyone should be doing and should have been doing all along. And so I'm, you know, just so thrilled to have a conversation with you all in a space that I know is going to give us the chance to talk about all the real stuff, because I sense that those are already conversations you all were having, but a lot of the rest of us in the rest of this industry and country and world were not. And so I've been looking forward to this, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, man, those
how are you?
Well. Let me just first
Sorry,
say,
I know you probably didn't see that coming.
yeah, I didn't. That's okay. You know, I like the off the cuff nature, so it's good. I'd like to just, those are very kind words coming from you, and we feel pretty particularly responsible for creating space and art that speaks to the human different permutations of the human condition. So it's really, it was in us putting this together was really important, that putting not just this conversation, but putting together our different productions that we may have done, and any endeavor that we do to create, first of all, create a mission that allowed us to not just create art for art's sake, because we all like to do that. I love creating art, and I love talking, but it would be great to do those things to an end, to actually enact some type of affect the world or impact the world, or even just impact a person in a meaningful way. So we really appreciate your words. Thank you so much. And we are led by Lena Muchetti. She's our artistic director, making all those wonderful artistic directions.
Ever since King Lear.
Yes.
Lena, how are you?
I'm figuring that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think how I am is a work in progress, and never has that been more apparent than these last couple weeks. And we talked a little earlier about how things were already strange during pandemic times, which is what this whole series was born out of. But now is a time that I've been doing a lot of reflecting and reading and listening, and in a lot of ways, I'm grateful that so many of us do have that time. That's like one gift that the pandemic has been able to give us, is that we have the time to do the work that is being asked of us, and to do it well and without the distractions that we might usually have. So I'm unpacking all of that and taking some good hard looks at it and trying to figure out what to do with it going forward.
Yeah. I can't help but think that that bike ride that you saw today is like partially made possible by the fact that a lot of people are home, and a lot of people aren't working. Well, I should say a majority of people, a portion of people aren't working, and are able to then pour energy into these protests and activists. So, and I'm sure there must have been a sight to see all those bikes riding through your neighborhood. That's pretty great. I think about the current times and where we are, and we're artists, and we're creators and theater creators and directors and actors and singers and all kinds of different things. But it's a little difficult to do that given our current situation. Something that I remember you saying in a previous conversation with us is that making theater is really different now, right? And I think everyone's kind of asking this question: how do we do this? So what are your thoughts on what makes it? Obviously, it's obvious reasons why it's so different, but what are your thoughts on those differences, and what are your thoughts on how to do that? What have you been doing?
Great question. I have several answers, I suppose. For me, my, sort of quick overview of my life since, March 12th, which was a Thursday, and the day that I was in LA. We were supposed to have our first preview of Hamilton in LA that night. And even as, that time was very surreal, as it sort of settled in into April, I've been going pretty nonstop since Hamilton at the Public 5 years ago. We've opened 5 companies in that time, 6 companies if you count London, but I didn't work on that production. And so early pandemic times, and still a little bit now, there's been and I'm enormously grateful and privileged to have stayed healthy and to have an apartment that I like and to have some money in the bank that I don't have to stress too much, and that unemployment, that extra 600 is really helpful. And there's so many ways that I'm so fortunate and so and have been so lucky and so privileged to have part of my experience at this time be, oh, you actually get to slow down, and you haven't been able to do that in a long time. So that's been part. I have been meaning to write more for years and have lots of ideas for things that I would like to write. And so, starting to journal and brainstorm and think about what those things are, even if they only end up in a drawer. And that's something that I try to hold myself accountable to, is that I think sometimes it can be really crippling when you start thinking about writing something, of like, you start to stress about what the production would look like, and don't step back and be like, this will almost never get produced. But like, you might as it will definitely never get produced if you don't write it. And so,
right.
That's
go for broke while you're doing it.
Yeah, might as well. And so that's been one aspect of it. There's a couple of projects, one in particular that's a friend of mine, a writer named Kion Hersey, he and I've been working on a new musical for a long time, and we are continuing to develop that. So he's continuing to write, and then we're just constantly talking about that. And more and most recently, and I think kind of where my brain is at the moment when thinking about theater making in this time, I think that there will continue to be experiments of, 1 or 2 person shows with socially distanced seating, and like that in spaces where that can be accommodated, that will happen. And great, I think that's there's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to Broadway or commercial theater or big theater, like theaters where you would need, the resources of ticket sales and the resources of people to staff, that's just not happening until we have a vaccine, or until it can really be safe.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a while. So I think that there is, that's part of where my brain is at in terms of a lot of what I'm now, and regretfully now, that I have a huge amount of sorrow and sadness for what it has taken us to come to this place. And that's just mine to carry and to live with and to think about. Right. But everything needs to be different now, and theater needs to be different, and how we make theater needs to be different. And as someone who is a part of a show that means a lot to people, and a show that employs a lot of people of color and always has, and a show that frankly, as we have grown, we can now look and see that the vast majority of the people in managerial or leadership positions are white. And we've never talked about that in a real way. And we've never grappled with that, and we've never done that work. We were too busy putting up the next company. And that's not a good excuse. And there are so many excuses, in the history of why the theater industry and Broadway and, has not done this work. But to me, that now is, I feel like it's a good, it's a necessary, it's a vital reckoning for, a few weeks ago or a month ago, it was like, there was this rush of content and Zoom readings and, like, how do we adapt? And like, great, that can still happen. But I feel like it's helpful now to sort of, for everyone to take a step back and be like, that is not the most important work. We have much more important work to do. And as we do that, let that guide us in terms of what we're then making, or what we're then putting together.
Yeah. So it feels like, you know, creating art that speaks to the time, and not allowing it to something that we talked about in our talk about, not allowing it to be a bubble, but allowing the time to permeate the actual art and the conversation to kind of be a part. So as not to ignore it, so that there aren't these other instances where we come up and we have, you know, times where we're feeling sorrow or sadness that we didn't do the things that we were supposed to do, that we should have been doing for so long, at the expense of other people. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, again, I think that the pandemic and the quarantine has kind of exacerbated a lot of things in a really interesting, great way. I think it allows people, you know, people's attention spans are ever so longer for just a little bit longer, you know, and I think that's really great. Capitalizing on that in terms of things that are really important, um, uh, human to human connection and all that kind of thing. Awesome. So, and we're talking a little bit about, um, you know, what it's going to look like after this. You know, we don't know when that's going to be, or we don't know what that's going to look like, but we have some theories and some ideas, and people are kind of working on that thing. As you start to really think about that and move forward for yourself as a, you know, just as a director, as a theater creator, what are some of the what are some of the fears that come up for you of like, as we move into the next phase of creating theater post COVID?
Um, I think the biggest fear I have is is what you mentioned, is that bubble idea, because I um you know, obviously everyone is rushing to do something right now, and great, that like that they should, like we're all late on this. We're like there's so much to be reckoned with and to do, and it will take years, decades, century, like we're dealing with decades and centuries of oppression. It's not going to it's not going to change overnight. And so I have, you know, very much firsthand experienced the machine of Broadway and of commercial theater, and
Hmm.
how powerful. And look, I think that, you know, Broadway's not alone. It's where I have the most experience. But whether it's, you know, education or the corporate world, or, you know, like you can pick anywhere, and the status quo is so powerful, and business as usual is so powerful, and that's how we got here. And so I'm I'm most afraid, and I think that's part of what, you know, in the conversations I'm having with folks, and trying to think about what that moment will be, is can we set ourselves up so that there can actually be a sense, and I, from what I'm hearing, that, you know, it's just begun, and I'm thrilled to sign and support the We See You White Theater petition, and I know that that's just the beginning of what they have planned.
Yep.
And I'm hopeful for that, because I think that we do have this opportunity, since we've all had to stop, to say we're not going to start back up unless certain things are true,
Yeah.
and we're going to have certain standards and ways of working and thinking, so that whatever show or job or anything that we walk into, we can say, if you're not clearing that bar, then we're just not going to do it. We're just not going to do that work. And um, that that's going to be hard, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to be, you know, and it's going to be very individual. Like it's
Oh yeah, sure.
that's it's going to be a lot, but I think it's important that we use this time to be ready to have those ideas in place, so that you know, we it doesn't become another moment, and it doesn't become, oh well, we hired this person and we made that policy change, and that
Right.
mostly made people happy, and we kept on going. You know,
Right. Right.
I'm most afraid of that happening. So I'm yeah.
I think you're right to be afraid of that, because I think it's so easy, right, to just kind of fall back into those kinds of things. Lena, what are you thinking that, you know, as we move through this and move to the next part, what's on your mind as an artistic director?
I agree. I mean, I think even before our eyeballs were really focused on this these last couple weeks, that there were already sort of conversations about how some of the systems that we want to go back to normal are already sort of broken. And there's a lot to think about, and we're all sort of in this timeout chair in the theater world in particular, because there's only so many Zoom readings that you can do. With nothing but time to think about, in an ideal world, when we go back, do we have to go back, or are we just building something new? And I'm hoping there's a marriage of those things where we can have this time. And I think Patrick's right that it's going to be a longer time than anyone was initially preparing themselves to sit in the timeout chair for. I think there's a lot of time to look and to figure out what was working and what wasn't working, and what we want it to be. We want theater to be a safe space. We think that theater is a safe space, but it's not necessarily. And we're hearing that loud and clear if we weren't already experiencing it. So I don't know what the answers are, and trying to work on that myself. But I hope that if all of us are trying to work on that, we'll get there.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything that's precious, right? It's susceptible to all of the dark parts of what it is to be human, right? And what it is to live in this world that has a past and has these kinds of things. Sorry, there's a dog barking in my apartment.
I can't hear it.
My roommate's dog. Yeah, so good. I want to get back into like your journey, but I want to ask you before we go into that, if there was one thing about your industry, and you may have already kind of answered this in a way, but there's one thing about the industry that you're hoping, to be that. We talked a little bit about fears and what you're afraid of, but what's the thing that you're hoping for? What's the thing that you're really looking to really come out of this pause, out of the current civil unrest, into Broadway, whatever it may be?
It's very difficult to name one. A lot of what I'm spending my time doing is just trying to brainstorm with no limit to the number of things I would like to be different. But I suppose if I had something about that question makes me think, and I feel like a lot of what I'm thinking about is sort of in two areas. One, one of the things that I reread this week, I read it years ago, but I think it's a great resource. It's cited in the We See You White Theater petition, but the August Wilson speech, The Ground on Which I Stand, which he gave in 1996. It's easily to find on the internet. I highly recommend. And one of the remarkable things is how simple and direct he is in calling for Black theaters and resources for Black theater artists. It's not too much more complicated than that. And in terms of Broadway and in terms of the commercial theater industry in New York, I think with that as a goal, as something that we need to move towards, it should inform everything. So Broadway is currently owned by just a few white people. We should work to change that. They can start to divest from some theaters and have people who are not them own them, and they will still make lots of money and be okay. We should think about that with artistic leadership. We should think about that with theater staffs. We need to talk to every union. Almost every union on Broadway is almost entirely white. And so I think that that's going to take time, and it's going to be hard, but I think it's connected to the second part for me, which is I hope that we can just be much more open about conversations, because a lot of what I'm trying to navigate and calm people down about, honestly, is that a lot of these conversations make a lot of white people who have had these jobs for a while very uncomfortable, because they hear these things and they think, oh, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to be replaced. And that's not strictly the idea anymore. That that's not strictly the idea. It's a longer arc than that. And certainly, I think that as white people in this country, in any industry, I think being really intentional about the jobs that you're seeking and your privilege and your place in those things, you should be very conscious of that. But I think it's much more about, like, whatever the show is, like, it should be part of the expectation that at some point in the development of the show, there's going to be, okay, so how does the show deal with race?
Yeah.
Because I think most Broadway productions or most plays or commercial theater productions would be like, it kind of doesn't. Yeah, well, that's not okay.
Yeah.
It needs to know how it deals with it. It needs to understand, like, that has to be considered, and that work has to be done. And that, I think that's not all on, you could identify as any race or ethnicity and be the writer who has to do that work.
Yeah, true.
But I think that that really needs to be considered, and then that needs to carry through to how the teams get put together and who's in the room, because a huge part of why, certainly, like, capitalism is the frame in which we are all existing, and that contributes to a tremendous amount of the challenges that we face. But I think that is going to be, as in most cases, it's going to be for a long time. We're not talking about that many people. Broadway is not that big. There's only 41. I think that's 41 is the number of Broadway theaters. So a few hundred, a few thousand, mostly white people have made millions and millions of dollars on Broadway. And yes, they're going to have to start making less, and that money needs to start going to Black theaters and to Black theater artists and to people of color so that they have the resources. Theater, as you both know, as theater makers, you need stuff, you need space, you need costumes, you need lights.
Yeah.
And all those things cost money. And so there's the sort of big picture, like, we need to be thinking in the direction of systemic change. And on the way to that, we need to not be afraid to be talking about it.
Thank you, man. Profound answer. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Man said capitalism, systemic issues. That's what I'm talking about. Digging in. Digging in. Okay, so thank you so much for that. I think that was really important for us to have that time and give that space. And doesn't mean that we can't come back to that kind of thing in our time here. And I suspect that all of us and those of you watching will have some thoughts about some of the things that we're saying, and how does, what's happening in the world right now, what does that mean for the art that you create if you are a creator, and what does it mean for yourself as a person and a human being? So I'm glad that we gave that space, and we can always give that space. So if you have any thoughts or comments about what we spoke about, please leave it in the comments below. I'd also like to take this moment to say, if you have any questions for Patrick, please put those also in the comment section of this Facebook Live, and we'll be answering those at the end of our session. Cool. I think it's time to drink. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I drink too much. What do you have there? What are you drinking, Patrick?
It's just a little wine, a little rosé.
Nice. Nice and light.
On a Facebook Live.
Post-run rosé. I like that. Lena, what are you drinking over there?
It's tea. It is lavender tea, because I'm a little nervy today.
Hey, you know what? You do you. Take care of yourself. Whatever you need to do to be gentle to your soul.
Thank you.
Fortify your armor the way that you need to.
With some lavender.
With some lavender. Yeah, that's good. I'm sipping on just a little beer. It's an IPA. Nothing serious.
Great.
So, Patrick, you are the associate director of what show? What show is that?
Freestyle Live Supreme, but also Hamilton.
So there's a couple of things. A lot of things are in the news, and people that who follow along may know a couple of things. So there was a recording done of Hamilton a few years ago with the original cast. Is that right?
Yep.
And that recording, I think I remember the day that it was happening because I was fanboying, but but that recording is now going to be released on Disney Plus. What's the date for that?
July 3rd.
July 3rd. Awesome. That's really great. So look out for that. So if you have Disney Plus, which I don't, but I'm going to get it so that I can make that, so I can glue my eyeballs to the screen. And then for those, I know what Freestyle Love Supreme is. I've known what Freestyle Love Supreme was for a long time. Let everyone know, let the audience know, what is Freestyle Love Supreme, and what's your role in it?
Sure. So, Freestyle Love Supreme is a group of people who do a hip hop comedy, completely improvised show. This group was born out of actually the process of the making of In the Heights. It was founded by my boss, Tommy Kail, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Anthony Viniziali. Anthony went to Wesleyan, which is also where Tommy and Lin went, and was kind of the one who kind of pulled Tommy Kail into the theater and at Wesleyan. And they were working together in New York City, and part of this little group that basically turned the basement space of the drama bookshop into a black box theater. And that's where Lin was writing Heights, and they were doing readings of Heights. And on breaks, Anthony and Lin would be freestyling, and eventually they decided to sort of turn that into a show. And so that was 15, 16 years ago. They've been doing the show ever since. And I got pulled in actually, it was a little over a year, and I guess a little over a year and a half ago, I was in Puerto Rico for when we brought Hamilton to Puerto Rico. And Tommy called me, and at the time he was shooting Fosse Verdon. So if anybody hasn't seen the miniseries Fosse Verdon,
Yep.
Tommy was the creator and directed a bunch of the episodes. And so they were in the midst of shooting that, which was very intense. And they had the opportunity to do an off-Broadway run of Freestyle Love Supreme, which they'd never done. The shows always existed as kind of like one night only or a couple of nights
At the public, right? They would do them at the public most of the time, or
they would often do them at Joe's Pub. It actually really started at Ars Nova. So Ars Nova was kind of like the first place that they were performing, and they would do benefits and concerts here and there. But Ars Nova just took over a new space, the Greenwich House Theater downtown, and at the beginning of their taking over the space, basically they didn't have anybody in that slot, and so Tommy and Lin and Anthony, basically were able to get the right team together to be able to put that up. Tommy's availability was very limited because of shooting the thing. So right after I got back from Puerto Rico, I jumped in and met this remarkable and wild group of friends, some of whom I knew. So like Chris Jackson and James Eichelhart, right. I knew from the show. And some of whom
I forgot he's playing Lafayette. I forgot his name. Michael? No, not Michael. I forgot it. He's also in it. He played the genie.
James Monroe Eichelhart. Yeah, exactly. And so the rest became fast friends, and we did that run off Broadway, and then the show moved to Broadway this past fall. And so I was again around for that, and a really remarkable group of humans, a really remarkable show. We were able to welcome some new people into the cast. So Anissa Folds and Kayla Milady, who is an amazing, incredible beatboxer, and really that it feels a little bit stalled by the pandemic, because it felt like post Broadway, right? There's a Freestyle Love Supreme Academy that some amazing people have come through. So we were just kind of ready to sort of like start letting more people know about it, and sort of cut short. So hopefully on the other side of this, it'll be something that more people get to see and more people get to know about. But there is a season of a TV show that they produced, and a bunch of clips online that you can find if you search for Freestyle Love Supreme.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan. I mean, Lena, have you ever seen them? Have you ever seen
I
Freestyle?
have. I didn't know there was a TV show. I'm like writing that down.
Yeah, they were also, a lot of them were on there. A couple of times they would kind of guest star on like some Funny or Die videos as well. They were just very, very
Yeah.
funny, like very cool stuff.
Saw a lot of older ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, on YouTube.
so awesome. So I'm sure that the fellows and the people that are involved in that were pretty excited about getting a off Broadway to Broadway, an opportunity to do that. What's it like for you? That's like your what how many times have you done that? Have you taken something from off Broadway to Broadway that you've been involved in?
Yeah, so it's my third Broadway show, second time I've done the off Broadway to Broadway. So Hamilton was the first. With Freestyle of Supreme, it was, I mean, the joke was like it, 16 years in the making. Like we were they were in previews for 16 years before I finally got to Broadway.
Yeah.
So it was, it was a different challenge. It was more about adapting to a larger space. They typically, like, that's, an 800 seat theater is about as big as they normally play, and 2 levels, and a lovely and complicated part of the show is that the lineup can be a little bit different night to night, and so
Right.
the
Yeah.
combination of the lineup changing and then the content from the audience, a lot of the show is built on ideas that the audience shares.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was so much fun, and one of the unique things about it is something that a lot of stand-up comedians have been doing that we decided to do is we partnered with this company called Yonder, where you put your phone in a pouch and it gets magnetically sealed, and then you get to keep your pouch. And if you feel it buzz or you need to leave, then you just go out and they can very quickly just open it up and you can, have access to it. But that way you don't have to like wait in line to check it or anything like that. It's a really easy way. But what it actually does is it makes everyone be incredibly present.
Present.
Like you can't be looking at your phone, you can't be distracted. And that was really moving for me to just be like, oh, how rare is that you are in a group of 800, and especially now thinking back on it, it's like sitting next to 800 strangers where everyone is just thinking and focused on the same thing. Yeah. So it was pretty special.
That's pretty great. I remember reading a little bit about that no cell phone policy. I thought that was really pretty cool. Or I did think it was really cool. I didn't want to call it a policy, but it probably is. Yeah, that's kind of awesome. So what's it like? So as an associate director, assistant director, what's the right term there? Actually, I just want to make sure I'm using the right thing. Is it assistant or associate, or is it both?
So it depends. We are, and by we, I mean, I feel like the industry and also SDC, the Directors and Choreographers Union, I think is starting to get better about defining that. So I guess to be super specific about it, associate and assistant choreographers and directors currently don't have a union contract on Broadway or off Broadway. So part of why those words get used interchangeably is because it doesn't make a difference in terms of your contract, really.
Got it.
What we are getting closer to agreeing on is that typically, whether you're a choreographer or director or a designer, if you're the associate, you are typically trusted to speak for the creative. So whatever it is that you like, you can go to a meeting on their behalf, you can make decisions on their behalf. People trust that you sort of speak for them. Whereas if you have the assistant title, that's typically not as true. So for Hamilton and for Freestyle of Supreme, I'm the associate director. When I did Magic Bird with Tommy, which was the first show that we did together, my title was assistant, and that was my first time working with him. It was my first Broadway show. So, I was a little bit, earlier in my career and wasn't at the place that, certainly that I am now with Tommy in terms of how we work.
Got it. What a cool opportunity to be early in your career and work with Tommy Kail, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. well, tell us about your move. So your journey from, knowing Lena, you still know Lena, or am I
Part of the journey.
to going to being in school with Lena and then making your way? How did you go from there to you're an assistant director for Tommy Kail for a show?
Yeah, I'll try to
Yeah.
I tell this story a lot, but I'll try to do it really fast.
Okay.
Okay.
So Lena, actually, the only part of your intro that was slightly incorrect is that while I did a lot of
Who? Oh.
FTT shows, I was not an FTT major. I was a political science major.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So um, so yeah, I at Notre Dame, even though I was doing theater, and it's at Notre Dame that I started directing and really fell in love with directing. I thought I was going to go into politics. So my sophomore year, I interned in Boston at the Democratic Convention in 2004. I interned on the Hill. My congressman was Sherrod Brown, who's now a senator in Ohio. I campaigned for a guy named Joe Donnelly, who was running for Congress in South Bend in Indiana. He lost the first time, but he won the second time. And then he went on to be a senator from Indiana. But those 4 years of politicking taught me that I did not want to go into politics. And so I didn't really know what to do. I wanted to be a director, but I had no idea how to do that. And a big part of why I like doing things like this is that I wish there would have been anybody around to say, here are some ideas for how you can go about that. And so I was really in perfect position for Teach for America. The recruiter was on campus, and the mission made a lot of sense. And where I hedged my bet was that I applied to be a teacher, and I also found a communications job on their website in their national office in New York, and I applied to that at the same time, and I got both. And they were not happy about that, but they let me pick. And so I chose the communications job. I was pretty busy in college, and I just didn't feel quite ready to jump in front of a group of students. And so I did the job, the communications job, which was good because within like 3 months, I was bored out of my mind. And just
Yeah.
like, it was very corporate nonprofit. It was very, I had a BlackBerry. I was commuting, 9 to 5.
That's legit. That's legit.
Yeah. And so I was just like, I don't want to work in an office. This isn't creative enough. This isn't, I love this organization, but I think let's try the teaching thing. So I got placed in a school in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and my certification was elementary and middle school special education. So I worked with students in small groups, and then I also co-taught with some other teachers. And for Teach for America, at least in New York, you have to get your master's at the same time. So I was doing classes at night and on the weekends for 2 years towards my master's degree. And then my third year of teaching, that went away, and I had a lot more time on my hands. And that's when I kind of looked around, and I was like, I was enjoying teaching, and I was getting better at it, but I felt like I needed to try the theater thing. Another thing that happened was a lot of my friends, as Lena as Lena knows, a lot of my friends at Notre Dame were older than me, and a lot of them went to grad school for acting. And so by the time I was like a few years out of school, they were graduating from those programs and landing in New York and starting to build their careers.
Right.
So I suddenly was around people that were going for it. And I didn't know any directors, but I just started bothering my actor friends and to get them to introduce me to directors. And I was going to see their shows, and very quickly got lucky and met this guy. Actually, somebody that Lena and I went to college with. Our friend Mark was in a show that we all went to see, and I loved the direction. And he introduced me to the director, this guy named Gordon Greenberg. And Gordon was really transformative and did a thing that I try to do whenever possible. And I think many of us need to do more, which is he was a freelance director. He has lots of projects going on, and he would just let me know when he was doing readings, when he was doing things, and he would just send me the info and be like, just come and I'll say you're my assistant. Like, just come whenever you want, like whenever you can. He knew that I was still teaching full time. And after a couple of months of working with Gordon, he made it clear that if I really wanted to do this, I needed to quit the teaching job. And so I kind of took the leap into freelance. And Gordon is very good friends with Jeffrey Seller, who produced Rent and Avenue Q and In the Heights. And somewhere in there, this is the part of the story I always skip over, but somewhere in there, I saw In the Heights, and it exploded my brain and changed everything I thought was possible in theater. And I took all my 7th graders to see it. And that was where I was like, oh, that's what I want to be making.
That's the thing.
That's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And was very, very lucky that I knew I knew Gordon knew Tommy socially, and so I just asked for his email, and I emailed Tommy cold, and I just said,
Wow,
"Here's who I
man.
am, and here's I'd seen Lombardi and a couple of shows Tommy did at Lincoln Center, and um, said, this is what I see in your work, and would you be up for getting coffee or lunch?" And so we had lunch, and um, he was like, we had a great chat, and he was like, I don't have any work for you, but just keep in touch. And I did, and tried not to annoy or bother him. And about 6 months later, he called me to do Magic Bird, and that was a great experience with a great team on a show that only ran 3 weeks. So it was like I was living my Broadway dream, and then it was all over.
All over, yeah.
And I went back to full-time teaching
Wow.
about a year after Magic Bird closed. So I'd freelanced for for 2.5 years, and then my plan was, I was like, I'll just be a middle school teacher who also makes theater. Like that's what I'll do, and that's what I was doing when Tommy called me to do the workshop with Hamilton.
Wow.
Not very short. I gotta get better.
No, that was actually pretty good, because I was like expecting 20 minutes, so it's okay.
It's also
I've done that one before, so I'm trying to.
It's so helpful, because I know a large part of our mission statement that I sent to you is that we have a great student population that works with us. And I think it's really good to know that you don't have to have it all figured out as you're heading into college or as you're heading out of college. And people take different routes, and they're maybe not always the most direct ones. And to put yourself out there, right? And just introduce yourself to people, and you never know when you're meeting the director of Hamilton who's going to change the course of your. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good story.
Yeah, I think it's really great. I also like the part where you were like, I was trying not to annoy, because I think I really do think that there is a culture, and a lot of people are taught that you got everyone that you meet, you just gotta grab them and take them and get in front of them and tap dance and. So I think sometimes yeah, you shoot your shot, you put yourself out there, you kind of do the work, you create it. But then there's also this kind of idea of like existing in that space and actually just getting to know the person for the person, who the person is, and allowing them to open up opportunities for you instead of you kind of crowbarring them all the time. So I think that's really
Well, and I think when I think back to that, because it's a good conversation to have, because people ask a lot, like, how did you know how often to check in? How did you?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be glib with this, but I think it's something I've been thinking about in some of these conversations with especially white folks who find themselves not knowing what to do in these times. And I often, I'm always happy to have those conversations, and I'm glad they're reaching out to me when that happens. But a lot of times for me, it's like, well, did you think about it? Like, have you actually thought about what you could do or should do? And again, I don't mean to be, I don't mean to belittle it, but it's,
right.
And it is an interesting thing where like this pandemic allows us to have the time and space where like normally in day-to-day life, it's much more understandable of like, oh, you didn't think about it because like you were doing 80 other things. But when I think back to when I was keeping in touch with Tommy, I really was paying attention to like, should I write this email? Is it like, has it been enough time? Do I have something to share? Am I inviting him to something? Am I like, is this of substance enough to send? And if it wasn't, it was like, all right, well then give it a week and see what comes up. But I think that you're right. Like a lot of times people think like it's about quantity instead of quality, and I think there can be some real thoughtfulness just about like, what you're reaching out about.
Yeah, strong arming yourself into the space isn't always. I wouldn't say that there's no success rate there, but it isn't always the right. You have to kind of, read the room and know what the situation is and be thoughtful. I like that idea of being thoughtful. Excellent. So now I'm just kind of, going along with this timeline. So now you're helping Tommy with this show in the workshops, and I'm always just really fascinated with the way that this show came about, the workshops that were put on, the people that were involved, how it moved into the different stages that it was in. Um, what was it like? Did you like? I'm sure people have asked you this question too. Did you know that it was going to be this big? I think people have asked that a lot. But what was it like? What was it like for you, having just worked with Tommy on something else, but now working with Tommy on this thing with this person whose show blew your mind open, whose previous show blew your mind open?
Yeah, no, nobody knew that it would be what it became. I think that there was a sense that there was that like the possibility existed. Like, was there an expectation that it would? No, like it exceeded all expectations for sure. But I think, one of the things that Tommy mentions and I think doesn't get talked about enough is that the show didn't change a lot over its development. The show as it exists now is pretty much, there's a few cut tunes that you can hear on the mixtape, and there's a few trims and rewrites, here and there. But like, for a new musical to have, like, the opening number was always the opening number, the end of Act One was always the end of Act One, even though people talked about it being Yorktown, that was never seriously considered. The top of Act Two, always the same. And the end of the show, the finale was always the same. The final duel was sort of where we had to do some work and figure it out. But that's pretty remarkable that that consistency was there. And it's a testament to just how brilliantly it's written. And that's the thing that I think everybody, myself included, it was like, the writing was at such a level that it was like you were just trying to keep up with it. At whatever your job was. You were trying to try to keep up with what Lynn had already given us.
Yeah.
And the rehearsal process was intense for me because I didn't. Tommy's pre-production was like years of working with Lynn on the show. I wasn't around for any of that. And Tommy was like, I don't really, I wasn't around for casting the original company. He was like, I'll see you the first day of rehearsal. Like, that's, I went to a couple of production meetings or something like that. But it took me a while just to get comfortable with what this thing was that we were building. And I'd never worked with Andy Blankenbuehler before, and a huge part of the show was choreography. And so it took a minute, and then really tech and previews is where I think I found my groove. And that typically is true for an associate, where you move into the theater and there's so many more people and you have to divide and conquer with the director. There's so many people that need to talk to Tommy. There's so many people Tommy needs to talk to. So you take on a lot of those conversations. So it felt like it was asking everything of me, like everything I'd ever learned how to do or done, I was using. And I feel like that was an experience almost everyone could relate to.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of that. I think a lot of us are in pursuit of that particular kind of experience with a piece of work that it's expecting all of us, that it's indistinguishable between like ourselves and the work and the art and what's being put out and the message and what's being told in that art and in that work too. So I think that's really cool. And now the show is all over the place. It's, it was only in Broadway for a little bit. There was, a really cool thing where the soundtrack, a lot of people listened to the soundtrack before they even got to the show, which helped kind of spread the word and that kind of thing. But now it's like all over the place. So there was a Chicago show that's not there anymore, right? There's LA, Broadway, West End.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the next place?
So there's basically 3 tours. So there was a San Francisco sit down that when it picks up, it won't return to San Francisco. It will be a tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's 2 other tours that are out, and we are in final casting for Hamilton, Australia, and we are soon to be picking up casting for Hamilton, Germany, which will be. I don't believe we have dates for yet, but it will be sometime after Hamilton, Australia, which is set to open in March of next year.
Excellent. Very cool. And that's a lot of balls to juggle. That's a lot of plates to be spinning. What's that like? How do you do that? What are some things that you do to take care of yourself in the middle of that?
Well, yeah, it's most of those plates aren't spinning now, so it's a little more calm. I'm incredibly fortunate to have a team of directors. So every company of Hamilton has a full-time resident director and a full-time dance supervisor. And those folks, with the music director and the production stage manager and company managers, are really responsible for the leadership of the company, but especially the PSM, the music director, dance supervisor, resident director. They're, day to day very integral to the teaching of new company members, the ongoing integrity of the show. And so we just have an incredible team of directors, and have always had an incredible team of directors that are really, doing the day to day work. A lot of my life is casting, and so that's, both digital, virtually, but also in normally in person. And then I have more amazing people that I'm lucky to work with. Stephanie Clemens, who's the original associate choreographer and supervising choreographer, and Jason Bassett, who was our PSM on Broadway when we opened. He's our production supervisor. The three of us have, when it started, it was just the three of us. And so the chance to continue to work and collaborate with them has been very meaningful and very special. And really what I've, as this thing has expanded, what I've always seen as my responsibility, and I think Stephanie and JB feel the same. And it's interesting to think about now, and thinking about so many things that Hamilton can do better and needs to do better, both externally and internally. There are things, there was a lot of attention paid and a lot of effort made when we made the show to make it a space that people felt like they brought their full selves to, that people felt like they, that they could. And I think that is the impact of the show when it works, is that you're not watching a show, you are seeing a world that a group of people is creating. And that world is populated as presently with the human beings you are seeing as the characters that they're playing. And that experience is something that I feel like is unique to Hamilton. And I have tried to make sure that every time we have done a new company, a new production, or, as people go into the show, that we honor that, and that we uphold that, and that we keep that going. And yeah, to be honest, I think that we are in a moment now where, with a pause, we can see where in the rapid growth of the show, we let some things go that we shouldn't have let go, and we didn't pay attention to some things we should have paid attention to. And so we're just starting to have those conversations, but that was always the goal, so that it is helpful to sort of say, we were always aiming for that. We didn't always hit it, and let's be more real about when we fell short and how we can do better going forward.
It's good. I think this this theme of like accountability and responsibility keeps coming up, and I bring it up in our conversations with Tom and Lena for New Light Theater. Just as artists, as theater makers, what is our responsibility as we tell a story, and what is our responsibility to those who are going to be seeing that story. So I totally understand that. I get that. Excellent. Cool. So I think we're at a place where maybe we can go ask some people what's happening, what's going on. We can check the comms, as I like to say.
We can't do that.
And see what's going on. Lena, what do we got?
We got some. So Patrick, during the pandemic, there have been some amazingly original things coming out of the artistic community. What have you seen that's been different that you really seem to enjoy and will have a lasting impact as we pull out of this?
Yeah, there has been some amazing stuff. In no particular order, one of my favorite things in non-pandemic times that has become one of my favorite things in pandemic times is a show called The Jam, which Daniel J. Watts, who is just a brilliant artist and performer. He's currently in Tina on Broadway, was in Hamilton at one point and different points, but has done a lot of different work. But The Jam is his original show, and he's been doing it on Instagram Live just the last few weeks. So if you don't follow Daniel on Instagram or on all the channels, I highly encourage you to. Um, uh, my thinking about that made me forget my other things, but I will remember that. Another amazing theater artist and writer and creator is his name is Jordan Cooper, and he made a very he made a great series also on Instagram, I believe. I think it's on IGTV. So look up Jordan Cooper. Jordan wrote a show called Ain't No Mo, which was at the Public Theater last year and is one of my favorite things I've seen in New York City. And certainly, you know, we can say relevant for these times, but as relevant as ever, you know, and he's just a good person to follow and to know.
Cool.
I did enjoy, you know, while I questioned it then, and I question it more now that it happens to be the Public Theater has produced these plays, the Apple Family plays, which I do think are fascinating because the plays are within a single family. They take place on the opening night of the play, so they're very specific to the moment, and they're very they're just a beautiful artistic interpretation of the conversations a family might have. Now, this family happens to be pretty much they're all siblings that are middle-aged and white. The play doesn't touch too much on what that means and why that is, and I think it could. But I think that, anyways, the playwright wrote earlier in the pandemic, wrote a play, an installment of the play that was just about an hour long, and it was written for Zoom. And so it was, because it was written for that, I thought it was very effective that the way that it was pulled off. So those are just a few, but yeah. I'm loving continuing to see the ways that people are innovating and coming up with you know, things that, you know, I think we're, you know, there was a rush. I think there was an early rush of like, let's make as much as we can and be super creative. And then there was like the pushback that was like, it'll never be like real theater, stop it. And now I feel like we're like, all right, like you can, you know, like.
Yeah, it's like jumping in a pool and it's too cold. It's like you jumped in and you're like, that water, we need to get in the water. But damn, it's too cold, we gotta get out. And then well, let's just put our feet in the shower end, kind of is how it kind of feels. Cool. What else do we have there, Lena? Anything else?
We have, where do you draw inspiration for your writing? How do you see this time we're in influencing and inspiring the content of theater to come? And wow, there's 3 of them in here. And do you have a favorite part of the creative process or creating theater specifically? Mm. So inspiration for writing, where does that come from?
Oh, all over. I suppose, well, yeah, I guess 2 parts. The one thing that has been like itching in my brain and look, I think that this is, I'm not unique in this, which is some version of what is basically my story. You know, I think that all of us, I think almost every artist has to find their way to when they're ready to do that. Mm. The rough concept that I am interested in exploring is that I happen to have gone to high school with LeBron James. We met in basketball camp when I was 13 years old. And so...
Are you, Patrick, are you like secretly the most talented basketball player right now?
No, yeah. No. No, if I was, I would not be an associate director.
We wouldn't be talking to you right now. As we were trying to say.
No, I know you can't tell on the screen, but I am below 6 feet tall, and I was not any taller in high school. Lena knew me in college; she can tell you.
So you're hanging out with LeBron, okay?
So I would like to write and explore, you know, a theater piece that would basically kind of like, I almost see them as like parallel lines. Like what would that be like if we sort of took like, okay, well, you know, these people like from high school, you know, high school graduation on, where did that go and what does that mean? And I have no idea. I need to write it. And then beyond that, I'm interested in like, I guess I'm drawn to stories, but especially stories of artists who feel like they made an impact on other artists, but maybe their story is not as well known or told.
Mhm.
And yeah, so those are the kinds of things I'm interested in kind of exploring normally. And I'm like trying to look. There's like a shelf of my bookshelf that's like, these are all books that I've bought to read and research projects I want to write, and like we're like 50-50 on how many have been read. So you know, good you know,
Good.
good to take
sounds about
advantage of
right.
in these times.
Sounds about
Yeah.
right.
And then do you have a favorite part of the creative process or creating theater specifically?
Yeah, I mean it's a yeah, I love rehearsal. I love having the time and space to um, talk through something, to try it a few different ways, and to say, all right, well, that's where that is today, and like we'll see where we are the next time. But
Yeah.
that it's a funny thing, because when we put up a new company of Hamilton, we go into a rehearsal process that's about 6 weeks long, and it's 6 days a week, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So in terms of hours in a room, it's much more intense than my regular schedule, but it actually is one of the most calming and relaxing stretches for me, because I know exactly where I'm going to be. I know
Yeah.
exactly what my schedule is going to be.
Yeah.
I know we have enough time. We don't have to rush. Like it's that's my favorite part. It's nice when the audience gets like the other parts are fun too, but like I that's probably my favorite part.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. There's something very comforting as an artist, as an actor. I'll speak from an aspect standpoint of becoming like the first day of rehearsal, first week of rehearsal to me is like so great. And then like there's a few more weeks later where everything starts to click in and you're kind of like, oh yeah, we're using the same language. We're like, we know we gotta make this, we know what needs to be worked on, we know what looks good, but maybe we still want to tweak it a little bit more. And you're right, even though it's more demanding in terms of the amount of time that you have to give to it, there is something very comforting about that space and time and process. I would agree with you. And I imagine that like the process for you, for coming from Freebird and Hamilton, but then Freestyle Love Supreme, the process has got to be different, right? It's a different rehearsal process and way of putting a show up.
Yeah, no, Freestyle Supreme was very different. It was more about integrating and working with the new cast members when we moved to Broadway. Um, and I think in a, whatever future iterations of the show, that was a kind of takeaway that we had, was like, we should give ourselves some more time for rehearsal.
Mm.
With the trick being, you improv is like heavy lifting. Like once you get to like the 4 hour mark, like it's diminishing returns. You should just
Yeah.
call it. So you kind of have to do shorter days, but maybe more of those, and
Sure.
over time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Anything else there, Lena?
How do you see this time we're in influencing and inspiring the content of theater to come?
Great question. I mean, I guess
I thought the first question was the hardest one. These are hard.
This isn't
I mean, I guess it goes back to kind of what I mentioned earlier, which is like, I hope that the biggest influence and change is much more thoughtfulness and intentionality, and a real recognition that like we did everything one way, and then after this time everything was different. And that's part of what I think is inspiring and I'm optimistic about, is that before this, there was always an excuse, there was always a reason, there was always a, well, we can't do that, like that's too hard, and we can't, and now, and I think this is happening, obviously at an even greater level, in our society, where we're really, and we're I think all roughly around the same age, but it's like to be to look at our America and say twice in our lifetimes there was a panic and the government just printed trillions of dollars and it was okay.
Yeah.
So like that's another thing that I think is like, oh, there's not money, there's not, no, that's not, I don't buy that. I don't like, that's just not acceptable, because when it was really needed, it was there. So like, if you're telling me that it's not there and I'm telling you that we need it, I need you to explain to me more. Like you have more explaining to do.
You have more work to do around, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think especially for those of us in the arts and in theater, we are, how lucky are we that I think one of the major experiences so many of us are having in waking up to some of these things is like, there's such a rich tradition of art and culture and criticism and writing and advocacy and activism. It's all there. Like people have been doing the work for years and decades. So it's how lucky we are that is true. And I think that we have the chance to, before this, I think it would have been really hard to figure out how do we do everything differently. And now it's like, oh, we can just do everything differently. We can. And so we must.
Yeah. Mm.
Nice.
Ooh, you are so right. So right, man. We
That's what
can't wait to get. We should get a beer. I can't wait to get a beer with you. That's gonna be good.
I think that brings us to some lightning, Newton.
All right, cool, excellent. So, our last couple creative connection sessions we've been doing, we've kind of incorporated a lightning session with our guests, where we just ask them random questions. There's no need to explain. You kind of just ponder and answer, or just answer. Or if you feel like you really need to explain it, you can explain. So say it again.
There basically are no rules.
There basically are no rules, and the points don't matter. So, 1,000 points to everybody now. Here we go. Okay. Patrick, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee, what way though?
Black.
Nice. I knew.
Sometimes we get crazy and there's some oat milk, but normally black.
A little crazy. You gotta watch out. Beer or wine?
Typically wine. I would say like summer beers, like a cold beer on like a summer day.
A shandy, yeah, or a Corona,
sure.
Or a Tecate.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right.
I feel like I know your answer to that question.
Yeah, my answer is yes.
I have two hands.
Yeah, I got exactly 2 hands, only one place for this to go. Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner. Not a big breakfast guy.
Patrick, what are you having for dinner when you have dinner? I'm so interested.
I mean, we've been eating well because we're cooking all the time, which has been great. Another amazing thing I'm lucky is to live with my partner Sarah, who's a brilliant choreographer and dance maker and cook and chef. And so she normally would take the lead, but we've been trying to keep it balanced. And we're lucky early on. She found a group of upstate farms in New York that normally provide veggies to restaurants, but because most restaurants have been closed, they quickly sort of changed it around and just started doing weekly veggie boxes. And there's a pickup a couple blocks from our house. So every Saturday we go get the veggie box, and it's kind of like, all right, what are we gonna make this week?
What are we gonna make? That's awesome. I think it's also a way to keep creative too. And which one of those do you tackle? Do you tackle the breakfast or the dinner? Which one are you?
Yeah, so really, dinner is sort of like the main event, and then like lunch becomes kind of leftovers, and then maybe there's an egg, maybe there's some bagels in the freezer if you're feeling like you need to go for it, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Texting or talking?
Both. both.
Okay.
I guess like it's I'm what I'm thinking is there are some people that I feel like I am in ongoing text message conversations with,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. Sometimes it goes quiet for a couple of days or a week or whatever, but like you're always kind of keeping the ball in the air. And I like that. I will put in a vote, something that I've appreciated, especially in the last like couple, like week or so, in these super Zoom times. The good old fashioned phone call works just as well. You don't, and you don't have to worry about your video or if you've showered, and you can hear the other person, they can hear you. It also works.
Do you worry about showering for Zooms?
No, I would
Okay.
not say that is a true fact, but I did shower for this one, so.
And we appreciate it. Thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you. I did not.
That means a lot, man. That means a lot. I showered for you too, man.
Oh, thanks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dawn or dusk?
Dusk. I'm not, getting up early is a project I am working on. I'm getting better, but I'm not at dawn yet, so I have to say dusk for now.
Okay. Best place for ramen in New York?
Oh, I haven't had ramen in so long. There's a place called Chuko Ramen that I love, and there's a place called I forget it. Starts with an I, and it's in the 50s, and they go there on an episode of Freestyle of Supreme.
Is it
I
Ippudo?
want to say yes, exactly. Yes, that's what it is. I was just about to get there. You knew it. Yes.
Already taking notes.
I know about Ippudo. Okay. What's the best way to have potatoes? Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I loved a scallop potato, like the cheese and the cream.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
But the first answer that came into my head was fries.
As a fry. I like that. Yeah, I mean, come on. Fries are just great.
It's not really
They've
a
been
bad.
undefeated for a long time.
Is
Yeah.
it's been undefeated. Contested, like the curly fry, like that thing. I don't know what that's about.
I mean, there's different kinds. I'm open.
I see. You
I'm
like
open
this.
to all kinds. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
saying, like, McDonald's, like burgers, like the people have not found something that they're like, this is better than fries. Like that hasn't
This
happened
is
yet.
true. Yeah. I would agree with you. I think that's good for lightning round because I want to move into the other questions really quickly. So, also on Creative Connections, if you've been watching, we also do the James Lipton or the Actor Studio questions, which is a list of 10 questions that are supposed to give the guest and the person answering them an opportunity to let everyone know what kind of person they might be and kind of give some truthful answers here. So, Patrick, you ready for that?
I think so. We're about to find out.
Well, I remember I've already asked you the hardest question of the evening. I front loaded it. Yeah. Patrick, what is your favorite word?
Conundrum.
Ooh, that's nice. What is your least favorite word?
Can't.
Oh, mine too. What turns you on?
Possibility.
What turns you off?
Mean-spiritedness.
What sound or noise do you love?
The wind or a breeze on a nice day.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Lately, my cat Phoebe has been meowing to the heavens at like 5 a.m, and it haunts me.
Okay. Nice. What is your favorite curse word?
You know, you thankfully gave me a heads up on these questions, and this is the one I've been thinking about, and it's a hard one. Shit is probably the quickest to my tongue, but I appreciate, and I might appreciate it more in writing. I haven't really decided, but every once in a while when you add the H to fuck, where it's fuck, if it just gets like that, like sometimes that is just really satisfying.
Oh, it's like a full body articulation of whatever you. Yes, I'm with you because it incorporates, the diaphragm, the lungs, these things. It's right.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? Or any that you've done before, because you've been a teacher too.
Yeah, I think some sort of going back to my political science days, I think some sort of elected office is of interest, or working for someone, or some sort of more direct public service. I could see in the future.
Okay, so mayor.
Sure. Of what? I don't know.
I don't know either. What profession would you not like to do?
Anything medical. I would just be passing out every 30 seconds. Thank God for the people that do it, and I am so thankful to be a pretty healthy person. But that yearly physical is like, I've gotten pretty good but like I'd say in my 30s I can hang. My 20s, it was all orange juice and yeah.
Orange juice and
or just horizontal and nurses waiting for me to leave. So
I got you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yes.
Lena, are you that way too?
Oh my gosh, yes. I passed out when the nurse was giving me instructions on how to take care of Tom's wisdom tooth.
Oh, that's right.
It didn't even happen to me. She was just like, here are the things that you need to do to help. And then I woke up on the floor and Tom's all bandaged standing over me like, she did it again.
Wow. No. I watch surgeries. I'm all about it.
No.
Look at both of your faces.
No.
All right. Okay. All right. When you're the mayor of whatever town, there won't be any surgeries there.
No,
I don't know that I'm going to take that stance. I'm just going to say the mayor need not attend.
It is decreed that today the mayor need not attend. All right. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
The other one I've been thinking about, and I don't think I have a great answer, but the two I've been thinking of, and I think I'm cheating here when I keep saying two things, but my silly answer, you asked me at some point if I could be silly. My silly answer is ta-da.
Yes.
But my real answer is I think just laughter.
I think if when we do get our beer, I think I'm going to greet you with both of those.
Great.
I'm not trying to say that I'm God. I'm just saying I'm just saying that I want to give you a heavenly experience.
It'll just be a good rehearsal.
Well, we have to find a bar called the Pearly Gates.
The Pearly Gates,
New York and Philly, and I'll meet you there.
I will find it. Patrick, thank you so much, man. At this time, just like on Hot Ones, you have a chance to look dead in the camera and kind of let everyone know where to find you. And then we're also going to there's a video that that you've shared with us that we're going to share with everyone to watch. Could you tell us about the video and then let everyone know where to find you?
Sure. So the video is just a few very basic kind of audition tips for self-taping and for auditioning in these completely virtual times, and very much from watching a lot of tapes from Australia and going through this casting process there. And as I mentioned in the video, the theater industry we were already doing a lot of self-tapes before this, and it's only going to become more popular, I think. So just a couple of thoughts from my side of the screen. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find, patrickvassel.com, Patrick Vassel on Instagram, PDV on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. And nothing really to hype or promote at the moment. Thankfully, I think most of the things have come up, but I guess I would say the only couple thoughts I guess I have in that direction are, if you have not seen or been familiar with the We See You White American Theater petition, sort of speaking to what I imagine is a theater audience, I would just encourage you to seek that out and stay tuned on what they are up to. And I think too, just thinking about the ways all of us can make a difference, and thinking about all of the ways that all of us can find, big and small, especially within the theater industry and how we make theater. So, and I know a lot of people are already starting to think about this and already starting to have these conversations, but if you are in a union, talking to your union leadership or your fellow union members, if you are part of a theater company, if you are whatever is you have access to, I think we're going to need everybody. We're going to need everybody to do what they can. And for some people, that's going to be really big, and for some people, that might be really small. But I do know that there's a lot of work to be done that can happen from just one conversation or one email or whatever it might be. So I am so grateful to have had this time with both of you. So thank you again so much for having me. And I am thrilled to have these conversations and thrilled to have so many more at the pearly gates or wherever else.
Or wherever else. Right.
Yeah.
Sure. At a barbecue or something like that. That would be nice. Patrick, thanks so much. I just think you're a really awesome guy, pretty earnest and honest. And I really appreciate that. It's very inspiring to see you here and talking about the things that really matter. So we really appreciate you being here. And it's been a wonderful time. Lena, have I forgotten anything?
No, just thank you so much, Patrick.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Let's just go out on some more music because I like music.
What show should you pick?
Which what?
What show will you pick music from?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick some music from this. No, it's just a very obscure.
Okay.
Yeah, very obscure.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten
July 3rd, people will finally know what this song is.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks everybody for joining us. That's it for Creative Connections. If you like what you saw, please go on to our follow us on Instagram and follow us on Facebook here where you're watching this, and give Patrick a follow too. Patrick, again, thank you so much for joining us. Good night, everybody.
And every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the waves, he struggled and kept his guard up. Inside he was longing for something